Tony Bradshaw with AddSomeToYourIncome.com here to talk about how to successfully ask the PTA for money. This can also connect with other organizations that you're asking for money, that have that money, where you're looking for scholarships and other ways of supporting what it is you're trying to accomplish. I have myself in my 9th year teaching, just wrapping it up, heading into my 10th year teaching. Nearly every year I've asked the PTA for some, on average, I've asked the PTA for something every year. I've probably made at least 10 requests. I will share some of my successes, I will share some of my failures, and put in some tips on how to keep that relationship with the PTA, especially after I interviewed a prior PTA president and got a nice tip there. Let's dive in. In fact, I might start right there. I was failing in some of my asking, and I felt like when I would come to the PTA and ask that they spend their funds that they had plenty of on something for the classroom for the students, that the answer was usually no, or a interesting combination of why don't you go jump through 10 hoops and then you'll be able to get these funds. That said, I do want to put in here the PTA has been very supportive of things that I've done, and that has been the way they have supported. I've gotten used to that. It used to bug me, and now I'm a little more used to it. The tip that this past president gave to me was to make sure to point out the need. Make sure when you're putting in that request for funds to be spent on something that you begin with the need. What is the need that is behind the ask? Because of how grant money falls, whether from PTA or anywhere else, I put it under gift income of the 3 incomes: labor income, gift income, passive income. I put it under gift income. Someone else worked yesterday. The PTA worked in the past to raise funds to be ready to have these funds today to be able to support whatever it is that we are asking for. The PTA is ready to use these funds where there are needs. When I asked for I think the ask was about $1,500 for the PTA for some materials for the classroom. I timed that ask to be at the end of the year, right after the big fundraiser, the online auction with the combination of the in-person auction when thousands of dollars roll in. I asked for $1,500. They were reporting somewhere around, I think it was like $12,000. This last meeting of the year in May, I think there were 10 of us maybe, and there I am with a $1,500 request. They could see how much had been put into the teacher grants, and the timing was such that they approved it. Full amount, go get your materials, Mr. Bradshaw. I get to have those materials set and ready for the next year, which was just a great thing. So the timing is important. That timing doesn't always prove to be. If you're following my channel, which I welcome you to subscribe if you'd like to know ways to add to your income. You have been following, or you've seen some videos I have talked about how I was going to ask the PTA here at the end of the year because I knew that timing worked before and I was going to try it again. The thing that I was asking for would increase my income indirectly. And that it was to help get more campers to the camp that I direct. When I see more campers up to certain mile markers anyway, certain number of campers enter into the camp, I see more money that comes to me as the director. That's just, an incentive, and that's how it works. So I have my pay based on how many students are in the camp. And I was asking the PTA to help support. This is a science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or STEM camp that focuses on innovation and creating. And I asked the PTA to fund for 11 students. And I had talked with their families to find out how much the family could afford and worked out the difference and had a number. And it was a big number. It was $1,850, so $1,850. The PTA had just had their largest fundraiser. They've had an unusual year, though. They weren't seeing $12,000 come rolling in. They saw, I think, almost 5,000. And the request is a large one, and it's a really interesting year that we're wrapping up. And they felt and could see how they run a deficit. The plan was to run a deficit, but they could really see it here at the end of the year. And then here I am with this, let's support 11 campers to get to camp. Well, I could tell as the meeting was even getting going, and I'm obviously, I've had big asks where they've said, you need to go get grant money that matches that, or we're not even going there. And as I have asked and been told no, that's been okay on some of the things that I've asked for, like to pay for my professional development. I get that. If I'm going to go take this class and hope to get some of it paid for, the PTA is kind of like, we want something we can put the name of the school on, right? So that's another thing, like materials and things that the PTA feels like we can put our name on this. Again, similar to with this request, it becomes a once and done. It's not materials. There's a lot of things I knew the PTA, and they have their rubric, and I looked at it and I realized probably not going to get this. At the same time, there were about $1,600 left in teacher grants. So I was like, maybe, because that was what was budgeted. This is the end of the year. This is the last meeting. We'll see. Well, with some talking, it was decided that the amount that would be funded was very little, and we'd have 3 quick fundraisers here this last part of the year. Exciting, and brings me to something I have visiting with me today, which are these Otter Pop containers. We are in the middle of one of these fundraisers and selling Otter Pops. It's a hot day here in May, and the students have been getting, first the PTA, either the person who came up with the idea or someone else at the PTA was saying, you could sell an Otter Pop for $1. And with some thought after, and as we're starting to put it together, we decided 50 cents would probably be just about right. Like $1 just seemed a little too expensive. So we're doing 50 cents an Otter Pop, 2 for $1 then. And the sales are happening. The Otter Pops are flying off of the freezer shelves that the staff is really supported with. Let me say at this point that I've learned in my working with the PTA, I was going to talk about learning how to work with the PTA. I have learned that I go in with the ask, and then I'm usually being countered with another ask for more things for me to do. Not always. There have been many times that I've got an ask and it's just gone right through, or I've done an ask and they've just said outright no. But for the most part, what generally seems to happen is the PTA says, we will either match funds to other grants or scholarships, we will help you fundraise, and that's what's happening in this particular one. So they said on this meeting that they'd give $25 per student, which kind of gets tricky because different families, the families were at amounts that weren't $25 per student, but that's what they could think through. This is about what we would donate or give or have the grant. And then these 3 fundraisers, and then we see where we're going to be at, and we may do a quick online voting if we're going to raise more funds, which is really exciting. I'm getting a little too much into the details. So back to working with the PTA. When I approach the PTA, I work to let them know a need. These families have financial need to get their own kids into the camp. I work on timing. I'm landing this large request at the end of the year when there's a large chunk of change that's still sitting there for teacher grants, and they just had the biggest fundraiser. Kind of against me that the budget for the year is running a deficit as planned, and yet that makes them kind of nervous about how much they need for the next year. And so the PTA then comes back to me saying, what if we support you by donating Otter Pops? So the great thing is a whole bunch of parents have been donating Otter Pops. A bunch of students have been eating Otter Pops. And we are having ourselves fundraising in connection with the PTA. And so it becomes a relationship. I went in with a certain how about you just give me money? And they, in the relationship, end up saying, we'll give you X amount of dollars, and here are 3 ways that we will fundraise with you. And it starts to become a work together, getting parents coming as volunteers, getting the things that are happening to be able to raise the funds. Will we make 1,850? Maybe we'll make 2,000. There is always that small hope. Most likely, we'll get these 11 campers into the camp. I know of other grants and opportunities that I can talk in another video. So working with the PTA is a relationship where you start with the needs, look at their rubric, think through, are they going to fund this? Be ready for them to say no, and then be ready to work with them even more. The ask is sometimes just the beginning of the relationship or the conversation and the project. You will find that you are able to increase that gift income by making the ask and then moving forward. I look forward to seeing you on the other side.